We've just leapt into a new year when resolutions are a hot item. But no matter when you're listening to this, resolutions can be important. In business, we often make them at least once a quarter as we set priorities for what we'll do in the coming months. Of course, so often, with New Year's resolutions, a month later, they're in the bin, and we haven't really followed through on change we had committed to. So in this episode, we'll talk about the role of purpose in developing our priorities and making resolutions that are far more likely to last. This is the Heart Body Business Podcast. Inspiration, tips, and tools for entrepreneurs seeking a more fulfilling type of success. One that stems from exploring and expressing their true passion and purpose and finding healthy ways to do so. All coupled with insights and action items to get a business moving in the right direction. I'm Steve, your host, and I invite you to learn more at heartbodybusiness.com. It's a new year, and with it comes a change to the format of this podcast. Why? Because of purpose. And I'm using this as a concrete example for you to run with in your own life as we move through this discussion. About a year ago, I knew I wanted to move into a new business venture to grow something of my own alongside my full-time position in the health space. And I knew something important. If you're not executing on some underlying purpose, something that drives you from the core of your being, it's difficult to maintain something for long. So I spent months thinking about all the types of things I most enjoy doing and that I feel I'm good at. More than anything, this pointed me toward writing and teaching. And I also spent this time reflecting on the topics that are most important to me, which ultimately are personal development, health, and business. This is what finally led to the Heart Body Business Podcast, where I could help fellow entrepreneurs live more holistic lives in order to better enjoy their business and success. Because in the end, our happiness stems from what's inside us and from the health of our bodies and relationships as we move from inside ourselves to the outside world and into our businesses. For the last 7 months, I established a foundation of content on what this podcast is about, giving me the freedom now to take the next step. And once again, this needs to come back to purpose. What is my own life purpose, and what is the purpose of this podcast? These are what need to drive my decisions if I'm going to be able to follow through on them. Now stick with me here because we'll relate this back to you and your business in a moment. For my own purpose, I'm here to create with words. I've done so for years as both a freelance and corporate writer and teacher, but I've also done so since my college days for my own expression through poems, short stories, books, and music. While keeping up with the podcast, I've still been able to roll out a new book called Who Moved My Chi and have written a number of new songs. That is, I've written the lyrics and had the magic of AI help me to turn the lyrics into fully produced songs. If you'd like to hear some of this work, I'll include a link in the description. For me, it's key to have this path of creativity. I often speak in this podcast about the importance of expressing your inner genius, and that's pretty flat advice if I'm not doing it myself. As you might imagine, though, this is challenging alongside full-time work and writing, recording, and distributing a weekly podcast. Meanwhile, what is the purpose of the podcast? It's to help entrepreneurs live more fulfilling lives across the spectrum of who we are. And now that I have a foundation of philosophy behind the podcast, I'd like to explore this philosophy through a variety of experts who can help to bring you even more value. For instance, experts in business who share their secrets of success, but also share how they balance this with personal growth and with honoring their health and relationships. If they're living unhappy lives, I really have no interest in learning how they've become successful because I wouldn't consider that to be success. So, all this said, I'm making a change to how I run this podcast. It's moving from episodes every week to now every 2 weeks, with a goal to start making every other episode an interview once I line up some speakers. In spite of less frequency, I hope this will enable it to provide more value while also keeping me free enough to pursue my own creative projects. I've also talked about writing a book in 2024 featuring many of the businesses of subscribers to the Heart Body Business mailing list. Now, this will only happen if we have enough demand with more people joining the list, which you can join at heartbodybusiness.com. But it seems to me, featuring businesses like yours in the book and having everyone in it collectively promote the book is useful for all involved. It could help your business to grow, which would accomplish the purpose of the podcast more than additional episodes would. Because I was acting from purpose over the last 7 months, I was able to keep up with the demands of publishing weekly while still exploring other projects. And because I'm continuing to think about purpose, this new plan is something I'm confident will keep everything moving forward in a sustainable way while continuing to share the value I'm wanting to share. You can see how different this is from so many New Year's resolutions, which often fall apart in a matter of weeks. Because the thing we fail on with these resolutions is that we rarely base them in purpose. So often, we use them to try conforming with other people's ideas about the world. We want to be seen in a certain way. We want our bodies or personalities to be more pleasing to other people so we can have physical or ego benefits. These goals are of the body and mind consciousness and not of the heart. And since the heart is what truly drives us, we have a hard time sustaining them. When it comes time for resolutions, whether at the new year or in a new business quarter, we need to start with purpose. Purpose has its own motor behind it, its own drive, and that is what allows for follow-through on efforts that fulfill it. It's what helps us overcome hurdles and distractions. In our personal lives, I believe we should always strive to better understand why we're here as individuals and what we can best develop in ourselves to live that purpose. Also, what activities to take. Our businesses should be extensions of that, so their activities should be directed in the same way. The better we understand the underlying drive, the underlying direction, the better we know what carries us there and what is simply a waste of time. Spinning wheels to keep busy, we know, is so often a waste of energy. Slow and steady in the right direction is so much more efficient than any speed in any other direction. The more you can gather the personal traits and activities that will carry you where you're destined to go, the more you can then gather the list and start to determine the order of activities. This is the only time priorities become important. That is, once you understand that an entire list is beneficial for your purpose, then you can organize that list into what comes first and what builds upon what. Until then, your first job is to scratch off the list all those things that distract from where you must go, where you are naturally powered to go. And because your loves align with your purpose, where you actually want to go. And that's probably the most exciting thing in all of this. When you find purpose for yourself and or your business, and you pursue this with your natural talents and the things you love to do, it's destined to be fulfilling with the highest possible chance of success. For you have the power of the universe channeled through your heart behind you, and the desire of the universe for everyone to live their purpose supporting you and drawing resources in for your success. I'll leave you with a list of possible activities to make the most of this topic. First, if you have any interest in being featured in a book in 2024, sign up for the mailing list at heartbodybusiness.com. This is the best way for me to keep in touch about opportunities like this. It's also a great way for me to get feedback from engaged listeners about what they'd like to learn more about, especially from our experts. You can also leave feedback about this on YouTube with any episode. Second, if you haven't done so in a while, take real inventory of what you believe to be your purpose in general, what your talents and strengths are, and how these align with what you truly love to do. See if there are new ways you can put all of these together in your personal or business life. The more areas of your life where you can do this, the more completely your life will be one you're excited about living. I've mentioned this before, but if you're struggling with purpose, I highly recommend human design as a method of learning more about how you're designed to operate and what you're here for. My wife provides human design consultations at hearthealthjoy.com. Early on, you'll learn more about the best ways for your design type to make decisions. After you spend time working on this and learning to decide in ways that are aligned with your build, and you find that things start working out better for you, this can lean into deeper discussions on underlying purpose. The reason for this is that, unfortunately, most people aren't operating from their true selves, and they need to overcome this before purpose is even relevant. Finally, if these are important steps for you, they're important for those around you as well. And the more you can interact with those who engage in purpose, then develop and execute on talent and passion, the more you're in partnership in life and business with powerhouses. Encourage these things in those you love and seek to work with those who live in this way. Purpose is the force and the direction. Use this to guide priorities and resolutions, and then at last you'll find that you can follow through and achieve your goals, which is exactly what we're here to do together. And if you're willing to put yourself out there on what your purpose is and what your next priority is in achieving it, leave a comment with this episode on YouTube. I'll make sure to respond, and then let's see if we can check back on this episode later and see what you were able to achieve. In the meantime, I'll continue looking for ways for this podcast to support your path, not only to success as the world sees it, but success from that highest place of purpose. Till next time, thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe. You can also join our mailing list to get alerts on our latest episodes and other tips, tools, and news. Learn more and sign up at heartbodybusiness.com.